Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome. I'm Howard Cohen. I'm a longtime volunteer with Africa Fire Mission, and I will be um, doing the job that Chief Mike often does, which is to be behind the scenes during these presentations. I actually work with Mike very closely on developing the curriculum for these programs and do a lot of my own training. So I do want to welcome you all again. Um, Please use the chat to communicate. If you have questions, you have comments, things are not working technically the way you want them to be, let me know. I'll be following that. And also make sure that the screen name that's showing is your name. And if there's more than one of you watching from the same screen, I'm going to put Mike's email address in the chat for you to email him the names uh, um, afterwards so that he can get you a certificate. Uh, so, let's see, what else do I want to tell you? Well, for right now, I think I'm just going to go right to um, our our guest who's going to give us some words of encouragement. I'm not sure if it's going to be Errol, who seems to be having trouble, or longtime AFM volunteer Craig Duck. So one of you, it's your step
Greg
up.
will go. All right. I'll go ahead and step up. Hi.
Okay, Craig, we're having trouble with your sound's not coming through. Try again.
Okay. How's that?
That's
That
better.
good? We
Better,
doing
yeah.
good? Okay. So we're currently in Malawi, and I wanted to give you some words of encouragement. Uh, how many of you have a problem with broken hose? I think if we were to ask that question and ask for a show of hands, many people have a challenge of broken hose, and many of you have to fix your broken hose. I'm in a department that we had a fire, and one of our 4-inch hose broke, and we had to go ahead and get it repaired. Fortunately, we had somebody that could do that. When I worked in Washington D.C.,
You're, you're breaking up on us again, Craig.
corner, and we just get. And many of you have to fix your mind of fixing broken hose, and wanted to give you some words of encouragement for that. Here we go. The right now, the Bible talks about in Psalm 103. This is what the Bible says: "Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all His benefits, who forgives all your iniquity, who heals all your diseases, and redeems your life from the pit, who crowns you with steadfast love and mercy." And so we know hose has an intended purpose, and that intended purpose is to get water to the fire, go through the fire truck. When it's broken, it is not used for its intended purpose. We know that as firefighters, sometimes because life is so busy, we are not being used for our intended purposes. We're broken. I can give you many a story of American firefighters who come from a broken home, whose marriages have been, went to shambles, and all these things going on. They're broken. And I wanted to encourage you with these words from the Psalm, because God is in the business of fixing broken things. And when you look at what God does in people's lives, He can fix you. You're not too far broken that you can't be fixed. And the psalmist was praising the Lord and just saying how God's steadfast love and mercy is why He does it. He wants people to have a relationship with Him. He wants to fix your brokenness and restore you to a right relationship with Him, and then you can do mighty things for God. So I just wanted to encourage you with that. That's all I got.
Thank you, Craig. As always, it's great to hear from you
Hey,
and
my
learn from
friend
you.
Greg. Good to see you.
So, as I said in the beginning, my name is Howard Cohen. I am a retired firefighter. I was a volunteer firefighter for 20 years in the northeastern part of the United States. I entered the fire service as a chaplain and retired 20 years later as the deputy chief of the department. Um, Loved being in the fire service. As I was retiring, I discovered Africa Fire Mission and have been very active with AFM since then, um, with these trainings, traveling to Kenya, um, and other things as well. So, okay, if you're having a technical problem, you can't hear me, or you have a question, it's hard for me to follow the chat while I'm doing the presentation. So um, go ahead and um, you know, interrupt me and say, unmute yourself and tell me, hey, I've got a question or something's not working right. So I appreciate your support as we go through this presentation. At the very end, I will stick around when I wrap it up because I'll have some information for you about how to get any of the materials that are presented here and some other things. So,
होइन मैले भन्न खोजेँ त्यतिको भाषा जानेको बाटो मान्छेले के नेपाल गएर के गर्ने हो र भन्न खोजेँ हो क्या
okay, so only unmute yourself if you want to ask me a question. Okay, so Richard's plan was to talk about highway emergency operations. I don't know about in your countries, in your areas, but I can tell you that in the United States, one of the leading causes of injuries and deaths of first responders are highway accidents. I mean, people standing on the side of the road, working up an accident and getting clobbered by cars that don't slow down. So the focus of this presentation is to think about how to be as safe as possible on an accident scene that's along a highway. So, highway emergency operations. Oncoming traffic at highway incidences is one of the greatest hazards we face. I would just tweak this to say any kind of traffic. Doesn't have to be oncoming. It could be coming up from behind you, coming towards you. People, as you know, as they approach accidents, like to rubberneck. They like to watch and see what's happening. And when they do that, they take their eye off the road, and that often leads to another accident. And believe it or not, people seem to not recognize when you've got lights flashing or people standing there, with stop signs or some way of trying to indicate that you need to slow down or stop. It's amazing that people just seem to ignore all that. So it's really important to pay attention to concerns related to working alongside roads. So a lot of times when you're working a car accident or working an incident along the road, you've also got issues of extrication, you've got fire, you've got management of the traffic. Oh, double slide. So you arrive on a scene. A lot of roads have limited access. So getting there can be a challenge. Once you get there, they might be, as I know, a lot of the roads in your countries are 2 lanes, which means do you block off the road in both directions in order to make it as safe as possible for you? So what exactly do you do when you arrive on the scene? Obviously, the first thing you want to do is you want to get to the accident scene. But once you're there, but you also need to make sure that it's safe. So one of the things you need to do is figure out where you're going to place your apparatus. Depending on the kind of road that you're on, you might not be able to shut the road entirely down because when you shut down a highway or a road, that could interrupt all kinds of business and important traffic for a long time. But you've got to make sure that you're safe as you're working the accident scene. So somehow you're going to have to park your apparatus in a way that it's going to protect you. The best way to park your apparatus or whatever kind of vehicle you have is on an angle. As you know, the tendency is to pull up behind the accident scene and park there. But the problem if you do that is that if a big vehicle plows into the back of your fire truck or whatever vehicle you have there blocking it, and it's pointing, and your vehicle is pointing in the same direction as that truck is going, it's just going to push your truck right into the accident scene. So you want to, if you put it on an angle, it makes it more difficult for the vehicle, for the something that plows into it to push it into the accident. You also want to make sure that you place your vehicle far enough away from the accident scene so that it, if it is plowed into, it it's not going to keep plow into you guys. Raheem, do you have a question? I see you unmuted. Raheem Khan, do you have a question? No. Okay. So
No, I don't.
okay, I'm gonna mute you again. So Richard's here. Richard, go ahead and unmute yourself. Hang on a second, guys. Richard's here. I see his hand up. Richard, unmute yourself. Okay, well, I'm going to keep going until he gets himself unmuted because he might be having some more technical problems. And once he's unmuted, I'll turn the screens over to him. So you're paying attention to all these things as your vehicle arrives. Now, you also want to make sure that your apparatus is not so far away from the accident scene that it's difficult to get anything you need off of it to respond. Once you arrive on the scene, obviously you need to establish command and confirm what's going on with the rest of your crew. Now, that of course depends on how many other vehicles you have, how much more crew you have, and what kind of radios, what kinds of means of communication you have with one another. But you ideally want to communicate to others what's going on, and also if you need to request more assistance. Right, okay. So, talking about blocking again. Ideally, if it's a big enough road, you want to be able to block 1.5 to 2 lanes to protect yourself. Now, that sort of assumes you're on a big highway with, 4, maybe 4 or 3 lanes going in either direction. In a lot of cases, that's not realistic because you may be on a 2-lane road, and that 2-lane road might not even have much of a shoulder. So you still have to want to, position that apparatus to make the accident scene as protected as possible. So again, this is pretty much what I've just been saying. When you're positioning the apparatus, you want to leave space so that you can move around the accident scene, and also so that if there's an additional, if you get crashed into, it's not going to push into you. Your goal is to get the patient out if there's as safely as possible and out of the way. And I know that for a lot of roads, I remember from traveling the roads in Kenya, that could be a big challenge, and I'm sure that's similar in a lot of your other fire areas. Where I live in rural New England, that's also a problem. We have a lot of 2-lane roads, and becomes a real problem when there's an accident. Okay, when you're working around the vehicle that's by the road, one of the things you need to be you have to really have your situational awareness really sharp. Cars are very unforgiving when they hit people. So you have to be really alert to what's going on, especially if you don't have a large, safety zone around you. One of the things you need to pay attention to is to always exit from your vehicle and or the vehicle you're working on into the safe zone to the extent that that's possible. And you always have to be looking. You always have to be watching anytime you move around, where are the cars, what kind of traffic is happening, and to be alert for oncoming traffic, which also means you want to have people who are watching out for you, that you have controlling the traffic, who are looking around what's going on, um, controlling the cars, slowing the cars down far enough ahead so they have time to slow down. All this has to be going on to create a safe zone where you're working on the accident. Night operations create special problems for us, obviously, because visibility is then greatly reduced. Interestingly enough, as I'm sure a lot of you know, visibility can be significantly reduced during the daytime too if there's a lot of fog. We often have accidents here in the United States where there are multiple vehicles. They happen when all of a sudden the fog gets so thick that cars can't see each other, and then they don't slow down in enough time when there's a problem, and boom. We recently had a situation in my state where that exact same thing happened, and a van with a family in it, didn't see the truck in front of them that slowed down because of the fog and plowed into the back of it, and it didn't end well. um, you want to be careful. You need to have lights. You need to be able to see what's going on the one hand. On the other hand, you have to be aware that those lights also blind us. So which lights you turn off, which lights you turn on, depends on uh, which directions they're pointing. Um, Now, you have to use what you have when you're with regards to warning lights. Uh, every area is a little bit different. Some places it's red is the warning sign. Some places it's blue. Sometimes it's yellow. But you want to use whatever warning lights you have to let people traveling towards or away towards your incident, let them know what's going on. So whatever lights you have, use whatever you have to get the maximum amount of light to so people can see so you can see what's going on, but people can see that you all are working on the scene. So it's a couple questions to think about. The question is phrased as, is it safe to enter the highway scene? But I would ask the question slightly differently, and I would say, what do you need to do to make sure it's safe to enter into the road accident scene? How do you create it? How do you make it safe? That's a question you need to be thinking about as soon as you get notice that there's a vehicle accident. You got to start thinking, how am I going to make it safe? You know your fire districts, you know the areas that you serve. So if they tell you it's on such and such road, you start thinking to yourself, okay, what do I know about this road? What kind of traffic does this road have? Are there's, is it in a residential area? Is it in a business area? Are we talking about, what kind of vehicles are likely to be driving by? How can I get there? Is it easy to get there? Are there a lot of places to turn around? Is there a shoulder? Things like that. So you want to start thinking about this based on what you know, and this way you'll be able to make the scene safer for yourselves when you get there. And at the same time, you're asking yourself, what units do I need? Or what do I have that I could bring to the scene to help? Now, not every fire station, fire department, or ambulance has everything that they need, so you use what you have. Um, so, but if you hear there's a big truck involved and it's overturned, then you might want to start thinking about calling a company that can that could right an a truck that's flipped over if you have that resource. So you're starting to think about, what do I need on this scene? Okay, every scene, doesn't matter what you're going to, fire, car accident, whatever it is, you have to size it up. So sizing up the situation is absolutely critical. A good size up includes evaluating the hazards and addressing the needs for additional resources. Goes back to that question, what units are there? What do I know about the area? You have to the extent that you can get this information in advance, you'd like to know how many patients are involved, how many vehicles are involved, what's the extent of injuries if there are injuries. So That's all part of your sizing up the situation. Ideally, when the call comes into you that there's been an accident, the person who calls in will give you as much information as possible. I'll give you, for example, happened to me in December. I was on my way to a job, and out of the blue, this woman plows into the side of my car. Boom, airbags go off. It's a big mess. As soon as I realized that I wasn't very injured, I got out of my car. All the traffic had stopped already. I got out of my car and I wandered over to see the lady who hit me. She was much older than me. And I also started to call emergency services. We have 911 here in the United States. Got a hold of the operator and I explained to her what had happened. And I told her, I'm okay. I was in the accident. I'm okay. The other woman, I was explaining, I got a little of her medical report. I shared all that with the dispatcher. And so by the time the ambulance and the fire truck got there, they had some good information and they knew that there was one person who might need to be transported, but she wasn't, she wasn't dying. And so you want to share that information as much as possible. That certainly helped these guys out. And by the way, just to give you some perspective, it took the ambulance and the fire truck about 20 minutes to get to where we were, even though we were actually fairly close to them, and that was because of traffic. So, again, we can't get into too much technical stuff given that this is a talking training. So we're back to thinking about the situation. What does the scene size up tell us? What do we need to know in terms of, is there a trapped person in a vehicle? Is the vehicle on fire? Are there multiple patients? That's all the information you want to get and process even before you get to the scene to the extent that you can. All right, let's shift focus for a little bit. You arrive on the scene, you've got a couple vehicles that have been in an accident. Number one, once you've done an assessment and you've created a safe zone for yourself, then you move towards the vehicle that you're going to work on. Actually, the first thing you need to do is you need to stabilize it. By that, you need to immobilize it. You've got to, and this is like the note says, the vehicle's on its wheel, so it's upright. What you got to do is you've got to chock it. You've got to keep the vehicle from moving because, number one, if it's still engaged in gear, you don't want the car to accidentally start to roll away. And cars can slip into gear. Older cars, manual transmission vehicles, and so you absolutely want to stabilize the vehicle to make sure that it's not going to go anywhere. The best way to do that is to put chocks, blocks of any kind of blocks that you could put, around the tires. Now, depending on the situation, you might also need or want to deflate the tires, and that you would do that by punching the tires. Now, you punch the tires are now pretty much no good. So you've got to weigh whether or not that's the best thing to do. But you've got to stop the vehicle. You have to keep it from moving. You also want to turn off the car. And you want to, depending on the kind of car, you might want to just take the keys and drop them on the dashboard. But if it's one of those kinds of cars that the key just has to be near the car to start it, then you have to make sure that the key is taken a good distance away. So you stop the car, you chock the car, you block up the wheels, you make sure that it's not going to go anywhere. That's the first thing you want to do when you're stabilizing a vehicle. Now, sometimes you have to stabilize because of the way it's sitting. You need to use what we call cribbing, and that can be blocks of wood like this. We carry these on our fire trucks, variety of these big 4x4s, 4 inches by 4 inches. I'll let you compute that into the centimeters. But solid pieces of wood, you want wedges so that you can really make sure the vehicle is going to be stable when you're working on it. Okay, that's cribbing. This again shows you some examples of it. It's easy to make out of wood, but if you don't have the wood, you get to the scene, use what you can, but make sure that it's not something that's going to crush under the weight of the car, and make sure it's as stable as possible. Use what you have, what resources you have available to you. Stabilizing a vehicle that it's on its side is a lot more complicated. I'm just going to show you his slide and say it's a lot more complicated. And for our purposes, we're not going to talk about any more about that. Okay, so now you've got the vehicle stabilized, and you need to get to the assumption, of course, here is that you have a victim, and you need to get into the victim to get them out of the car. All right, so first of all, we're not going to talk about extrication skills. You know, how do you take apart a car? How do you take out the windows? How do you open up the door? That's beyond the scope of this particular work training. But how are you going to gain access? Well, the number one thing you have to do is just try the door and see if it'll open. Very often, the easiest way in is just by trying to see if the door opens up. The expression is try before you pry. Now, if the door is jammed and you can't open it, and you can't pry it open, and you're going to have to go through the window, then there are ways to break out the side windows. By the way, the windshield is very hard to break. That has to be cut out. But side windows, there's a way to punch them out. But you do have to be careful that when you break glass, you don't get it on the patient inside the vehicle. So ideally, if you can get in before you break any glass, then you're going to cover up the person with a blanket to protect them as much as you can. Just as an aside, because eventually it's going to be relevant to you in your various places, cars now sold in the United States, and I don't know how this plays out in the rest of the world, but the side windows, which we used to be able to punch out, I'm sure some of you've used those window punches. They're making side windows now the same way they make the windshield and the rear windows, which means they're laminated and you have to cut them. They won't just break open. Are you there, Richard?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
Richard, you ready to take over? I'll make you a co-host.
From this, this will say like the 3-point plan, action plan. This is the point number one. It is when you need to get access. Gaining access is it's very critical when it comes to these extrication tricks, because remember, when you're gaining access, you first of all have to stabilize the vehicle, and then you need to be very you need to be very sharp. You need to have a continuous assessment, scene assessment. That's why we say make the vehicle interior accessible. That's when you check on the windscreen. Chief said like we have two windows that are so very delicate to break. Number one is the windshield, the front and the front one, and also the rear one. Those are these are heavy duty screens. So the other one is, if you want to create an exit, make sure it is big enough so that you don't injure yourself in the process of, you don't get yourself cut in the process of gaining access to the vehicle. And the other one, make sure like that we have, because you see, some of these vehicles would have some fumes, engine fumes, some other things that I know in our vehicles we use air fresheners, air conditioners in the vehicles. So some of them can be irritating to people differently. That's why we say you need to provide clean air. The other one is when you're accessing on the critical patient, you need to make sure this person, remember the aims of first aid is one, to promote recovery and also to prevent further injuries. So we need to work with this. No matter how much critical they are, we need to make sure like these guys or this patient is protected against any other session. So we go next.
That's the same
So
one.
we're going to the next step. This makes the vehicle in it's a repetition, so
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, we go. So here we are. Step number 3 is you need, if there is a participant inside, we need to make sure like these guys are out of the vehicle effectively and without causing more harms. Then the other thing is the steering columns. This is something that I need to insist on. The steering columns, do not try to cut them, because remember, when you cut on the steering column, it means the front wheel, or for those vehicles that use the front wheel, and we have some other special cases, special vehicles that use both a front wheel and an extended drive wheel. Remember, these are the wheels that you're using to stabilize the vehicle. Remember, when you're stabilizing, you need to deflate the vehicle. We need to make sure these wheels are not moving. So the moment you cut on the steering column, it means the wheel now are free to move. So that's why we say, like, do not cut them. Then the other critical part is airbags. Someone has a question?
Let's see. I think someone needs to be muted.
Sure, thank you.
Okay.
So the other one is the airbags. We know we know we have vehicles that would have an accident, and then not every airbag that would deploy. So if you know a position that where like mostly you get the stickers on them, and then they're written airbags here, you have written an airbag. So if it is not deployed and it is not on the way, please do not deploy it, because it might cause more harm. Then how do you secure some of this? If you have a spine board, a rigid spine board, you can slide it across the steering, and then you use the lines, the lines that we have. You secure it very comfortably. So we go next, because you just need to check them and make sure like this is, and this should not happen. So remember, this highway response is one of the significant. It's one of the most dangerous things. There's some picture that we have seen with the sometimes on the slides that really indicates how much these accidents can be. We have been either witnesses, we have responded to some of them. That's why we say, remember, everyone I don't know if this happens in other countries. We can have a discussion on that. Like whenever we have an accident, we always get people running towards the accident. Everyone is there. They want to see. They're not there to help. They're just there to see. And that is that's when we can have either a secondary road traffic accident, because we have everyone wants to see. They want to see. So this is why we say, make sure you barricade that area. If you have access to the traffic police, let them come and help you to do that. Then you, as the first boots on the scene, you are in charge. You're in charge, or your duty officer, you're your captain, whoever comes to the boot, but whoever comes on the things first, you're in charge of that. So you need to start arranging for everything. Assess, look, then is my vehicle stabilized, so that now we can be able to get in. Then remember one thing, we need to leave safe, what about the safe zone? That's when if we get a victim or a patient from the wrecked vehicle, where do we take them next? So let's make sure these things are very safe. And the other thing is, we need to make sure like we get the safety precautions. Thank you. We go next. So the other thing that we need to really remember is the PPE. Safety is always and shall always be paramount. Then for the vehicle extrications, it requires specialized training. We have trainings. We have sessions that include vehicle extrication. Remember, this is the handling of the tools. It is not as the firefighting. We have special tools that currently we don't have. We have both generator, the hydraulic tools. Currently, we have pneumatic that use air, that use the air, the pressure. Then we have other tools that are required, that are only due to charge. We call them electric tools. So those are some of the things that we say, like they require some specialized trainings. And then the other thing is we need to do practice with the equipment that we have. Maybe we have the hydraulics. It has never been checked. It has never been surveyed. Like today, if you, I would be able to see, we are doing a lot of mechanical and maintenance. We're doing a lot of, we have two of our generators were down and we had to do them, we had to do the repair ourselves here because the serviceman, if we call the serviceman, to take out of time. So the other thing is, let's make sure like whenever you have the PPE, we go next, make sure the PPE, you wear the PPE on the right position. Use the right PPEs, make sure we know all the PPEs that we need to use. We go next. So let's stay on that. Remember, to determine extraction resources needed, we need to look at size up. That's why we started with sizing up. We look, visualize, see what is happening. It's one vehicle. It has right. Unfortunately, in Kenya this week, that should be this week. A few days ago, we had an accident that happened that killed about 7 people. So there, that's where we always, and it's a family. Actually, it's one family, 4 kids, and the father, they perished. So when we see some of these vehicles, like I'll give an example with Kenya. We have one vehicle that is Toyota, because there's a Pro Box. From the manufacturer, it's supposed to carry 5 people. That is 3 guys behind, and then a co-driver, and then the driver. We know it's supposed to carry 5. But in Kenya, you will find that the same vehicle carrying about 10, 12 on board. So we need to start prioritizing. Even in Kenya, we told like it's a Pro Box or it's a matatu. Cohen, you know, matatus here, you carry everyone in everything and goods and packages. We have vehicles that both on the roof, it has the luggage carrier, and then inside the vehicle there are people, and then layer side we have what we call the boot. It is also filled and it's full of things. So when you're doing the extrication, the purpose of this, it is to remove carefully and employ safety procedures. That's why we say, if you can be able to do the extrication. I remember in Kenya, when we were doing the symposium, we always have the extrication classes that are specified, and they'll give the learners specific instruction and specific skills on how to do extrication. You go next. And gaining access to the patient frequently requires mechanical or technological assistance. This is when we are saying, like, we need to use the hydraulics, we need to use the pneumatic, we need to use the electrics. Then the other thing is we need to, for example, we have these vehicles that are controlled computer. Most of them, they have a lot of computer systems that are controlling the thing. So we need to be conversant. We need to be versant with the types of vehicles that are found in our particular district or in our particular place of work. That's why I always encourage, the moment you get or you see a fragment of some of these vehicles that mostly they always advertised on the internet, that we have a particular vehicle that is coming out. Personally, I always take interest to know that vehicle, to know its operations. Maybe you'll never come across such a vehicle, but it is always good to have a hint of what to expect in case of such a time, because technology is really coming up with us. We go next. So a critical thinking. So do we have on this, some of these, like yesterday I saw some pictures that were going around about one of the fire engines that caused an accident, and we were here discussing and asking ourselves, did it hit a tree? Because one of the side was so much bonded, and we were asking ourselves, what can we do in such a case? So ourselves, that we need to ask ourselves, what is there any difference between two vehicles on a vehicle collision between a vehicle and a vehicle collision between a vehicle and a tree? Is there any difference? You can type it here, or you can unmute and talk about it.
If you put your response in the chat, I'll read it to everybody.
Yeah, sure. So we can continue as they prepare to do that.
I'll tell you one difference between a car accident with multi vehicles and crashing into a tree. Trees don't go anywhere, and it's never very good for the car or the people in the vehicle when they hit a tree. Better chance of surviving if they hit another car.
Oh, good. You have anyone else? Then there's this thing I was watching. I was reading a journal or an article from the highway guys. They were saying, like, it's very true what Chief Cohen have said. Like a collision between a vehicle and a tree, there's high chances of survival than when two vehicles collide or motor vehicles collide. And I think I'll share that I'll share it on the groups. So you go next, Chief.
Well, that was your last slide. So I think
Good.
And then I have this slide with the information for folks. And unless there's something else you want to say, I'll say a couple closing remarks. Richard, is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, you're good. Continue, sir.
So first of all, I want to thank you, Richard, for persisting and getting back on and taking over for me. And thank you for presenting the PowerPoint, so I was able to pinch hit for you while you're getting the technology sorted out. I wanted to add one thing that we often don't think about when it comes to car accidents and the hazards around them, because we're really focused on what's leaking, are people screaming, things like that. But we can't forget that they might be carrying some really dangerous stuff in the boot of their car. They might be carrying fuel. They might be, who knows what they're carrying. But, a lot of times people are transporting canisters of gas or oil. So you have to think in terms of not only, what's happening with the car, and the people, but what can't you see what's in the boot that could cause a problem. So I just wanted to add that. And so thank you, Richard, for your presentation, and thank you for all of you for being here, for giving up your afternoon for this to have this to be part of our presentation. I posted in the chat some links for how to get additional information on how to stay in touch, how to get to our YouTube channel. This presentation will be on our YouTube channel in a couple of days. There's also an evaluation we would appreciate that you fill out. And on that note, I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to stop the recording, and we'll transition into our tea time, where you can stick around and talk with Richard or one another, ask questions, talk about the presentation or anything else that's relevant to your that you want to talk about. So thank you again. Really appreciate you all being here. Come back next week, same time, and well, another great presentation, I'm sure.